I call the special meeting to order, the emergency meeting to order. City Clerk's office, if you would call the roll, please.
Mayor On.
Here.
Vice Mayor McGirt.
Here.
Commissioner Hartman.
Here.
Commissioner Colodi.
Present.
Commissioner Sacks.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. First item up will be public participation. This will be your chance to address the commission. A couple of asks. First of all, we're here for a very specific purpose, so let's keep it. We have many other meetings for many other topics. Let's keep this one limited to this topic at hand. Of particular importance to the commission as it relates to what we're trying to deal with today are personal experiences, things that you have personally witnessed, seen, happening, not hearsay, not what you heard about happening, but if you saw it or it happened in your business, or those are of particular importance to us as it relates to what we're trying to do today. So happy to hear those. Also, if you have any ideas, if you something you've seen that have worked in other communities, other places, or any feedback on what we're trying to do today, that obviously is also very, very helpful. So with that, I'll open it up to public participation. And just come to the podium here. You've got 3 minutes to speak. Just give your name and address, and if you want to share, if you represent a business, you can share that. All right, don't everyone come at once.
We need someone to break the ice.
Yeah, somebody. It's going to start right here. I think the cameras make everybody a little more shy, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
How are you all tonight? Hope
Hello.
Good. My name is Ed Ruby. I've been managing...
Make sure to speak in, pull that mic up if you would, maybe.
I've been managing the Atlantic Plaza condominium on Beachside, 425 South Atlantic, since 1999. Prior to that, we used to manage the Indian River Inn down here on South Atlantic for over 10 years.
Okay.
Over the last few years, we've seen a change in young people's behavior. We've seen a change in young people's parents' behavior. And just so you know, our property has had returning guests year after year after year. And what we've had now is we have parents who grew up in Orlando area bringing their children, which are teenagers now, which is a great thing, come to the beach, enjoy New Smyrna, except it's more of a spring break for the parents than it is for the kids. And while I hate to use the term free range, the parents all sit around and have a good time at the pool, but the children are gone. And last year, I was pleased to call the police when I went out and had some issues on our property that I looked at South Atlantic, and there were about 400 kids walking down South Atlantic Avenue, the entire width of the street, kicking over stuff on our property. And the police did show up, disbanded the group. I've never seen that in my life except on TV, like in Portland. And then they had a few come running through the backs of all the properties, and mine, they decided to throw all the chairs in the pool. And in probably less than 5 minutes, all the chairs in the pool, picked up a huge flower pot about that big, threw in the pool, which when you throw plenty of dirt in the pool, you have a massive cleanup. That happened on a Sunday night. I know our state does have a curfew, and I think that we need to do something to either get more activities for the young people to do on Beachside. I mean, you have a skateboard park over here on Landside, which does nothing for anybody that's over here on Beachside. These kids do not have cars, they're not mobile, and they're walking around all over the place. I'm concerned about the safety of a lot of the females in the groups that are pretty much have very little clothing on. Our state's worried about sexual predators, and it's like a prime candidate for teenagers. So I really wish you would all consider that. And if you don't believe me, you're welcome to come over to Beachside tonight and see what happens over there on the other side, and just check out the activities that go on. I have posted at my place 11 o'clock's quiet time. It's great if the parents stay and don't go to the bars. So just so you know, we could use any help that you can. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Yes, sir. Come right in.
Good afternoon. I'm here today. My name is Jack Protzman. I represent Beachy Beans Coffee Shop on Flagler Avenue. We're across the street from the Flagler Tavern. One of the several things about owning a coffee shop is that you have Wi-Fi and you generally have people that come in and sit and they're respectful. One of the other things that we're fortunate enough to have is we have a courtyard area, which turns out to be one of the only, if not a few of the places that people can go to another establishment, buy some food, and come over and sit with their family and friends, and it works well when those people are respectful. But this time of the year, last year, I saw something that I hadn't seen in the 5.5 or 6 years we've been involved with this property. The level of disrespect, the age of the people that were openly breaking the law, we quite often have to be very vigilant of the courtyard and walk out as an example. There was a young gentleman there with a 12-pack of beer, like it was a badge of honor, sitting there openly drinking it. He was 14 years old, walking down the street. The one thing that I'm sure that the chief and law enforcement officers are fully aware of, these kids that are under 18 are much more informed than they were when I was younger. They know what their constitutional rights are. They know who can touch them, what they can say to them. It puts an inordinate amount of restrictions on all of you on how you deal with this matter. But something has to be done. This is a great idea. I know that you've put a lot of thought into it in a short period of time. But the bottom line, I think, is just getting a grip on it, taking control of it, and it won't be long through social media that we will remain a great place to come and enjoy the outdoors and the karma that we have here at New Smyrna Beach.
Thank you. Others? Yes, sir. Come ahead.
Good afternoon. Ray Ingracia, 807 South Atlantic Avenue. First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor for reacting fairly quickly and putting this special meeting in place. That says a lot. I'm very appreciative of you taking action. I've kind of lived on coastal environment for 60 years, starting on the coast of New Jersey, then the coast of Virginia, and I've been here in New Smyrna Beach for the last 22 years. This problem is not unique, trust me, and I think you all know that, okay? And different municipalities take different approach to it, okay? We can't stop the crowds. I mean, we can't put gates on both our causeways. And the people that live here and say, I'm here now, no one else should come, that's a wrong attitude also, okay? But what I think we can do as a community, and you could definitely help us, is what I would call probably a four-pronged approach. Let's be better prepared, okay? We know it happens. You know, we know it happens pretty much, getting a little worse. We have to first be better prepared. Secondly, I think we need to provide proper police presence in the form of part-time, volunteer. Some of the coastal communities I've had, they've had part-time police enforcement. They've had volunteer citizens with enforcement, knowing when it was going to get crazy and busy. The third thing is we need to enforce the laws. Not just say we have them, but actually enforce them. And to me, the fourth prong, the most important prong to me, is hurt them in the pockets. Don't put together a $10, $15 fine or a $30 fine that's pretty good for free parking around here. Once you hurt them in the pockets, I think the parents will start to pay attention, okay? For a while, I lived in Windermere, Florida, and a fairly small community. But pretty much everybody knows you don't speed in Windermere, okay? If you speed in Windermere, you get caught, and I believe the last time I saw, the fine started at $250, okay? It built a reputation that this community takes the law serious, they enforce their law, and they apply the proper penalties if you don't follow the law. So maybe we need to start building a reputation somewhat like that, okay? But again, I thank you for this meeting and thanks for your time.
Thanks, Ray. Others?
Jessica Reelin, P.O. Box 2148, New Smyrna Beach. I want to thank you all for calling this meeting again, mirroring what the gentleman that just came up here said. I, too, have been a Central Floridian my entire life. I grew up on this beach. I respected the beach when I came as a teenager and in my college years. I can tell you that in the last decade that I've been living here in New Smyrna, that I've noticed a trend where we are seeing the youth later and later in the evening with less adult supervision. And so it creates a situation where they are able to feel empowered and egg each other on to do certain things that they shouldn't be doing. In regards to the fact that I know that our police force does everything that they can to help protect our citizens and the tourism that's here in New Smyrna. That being said, I feel that we could explore putting maybe a tourism tax where it can help offset maybe having to bring in some off-duty police, personnel to help support our police department and first responders here in the community, so that way the businesses feel safe, we as a community feel safe, and the tourists also feel safe. So it's a good, harmonious thing all around. I know that a lot of people don't like tax, but we have to figure out what we can do to help our police force and our community. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, how you doing?
323 Flagler Avenue, the old gas station at Cooper. I think everybody kind of knows who I am by now. Monday night, we had an ordeal at my place, and I think it really all goes back. I came from Ponce Inlet, 32 years living in Ponce Inlet, so we have a whole different kind of atmosphere down there. It's just nothing's tolerable. There's nothing. But I think one of the things at my store is the disrespect with the kids. But last night, the police department did park 2 cars there because that alone stopped what we had on Monday night. I literally went over there, and 20 or 30 of them was going to attack me. They're on my property. My store's closed. Their radio is blowing. The first guy blew pot smoke in my face. The second kid spit in my face. And then the third one was throwing whiskey in my face. That's something we should. And then they defecate on my parking lot. I mean, you tell them there's no bathrooms, they go to the sad alley, out it comes, and they pee all over the walls. And that's not family. When you're talking about kids, we got 3 or 4 or 5-year-old kids in a store, and girls come walking in that they wear more clothes at a nude bar than they do these kids. These are 14, 15-year-old kids. I tell them to go home and to their mother and show them what they're wearing. But I think where it all comes down to is, I'm a real estate broker from up north, Daytona Beach, Ponce Inlet. We put a substation for police department during special events, the Daytona Beach Police Department. I think that's what you need here for during the major events, like this weekend. There should be a substation over there. I know the police department's undermanned. It's obvious they're undermanned, because when you call them, it takes time to get there, because we have vagrants that come into my store. The response time is long. It's because you got 4 or 5 cops at one given time. I'm not sure. The growth of this town and the infrastructure has to grow with the town. You can't keep building houses and try to use the same amount of cops. It's not going to work. For every 500 houses, you should add another police officer. If not, you're doing an injustice to your people. And they're going to move. Then you're going to have what you're seeing. Because that's out of control. I mean, I can tell you stories about what's going on. One girl came in and said she's using her mom and dad's apartment from Orlando, and there's 16 girls staying in an apartment that's under 16. No adult supervision. It's bad parenting. We've had 2 decades of it. 2 decades of bad parenting. It all comes down to bad parenting. But I can tell you, when they see a police officer, they slow down. Anytime there's bike week, how many times do you park a police car, and it slows the traffic down? Same thing, it's presence. Make a presence on Beachside. Flagler Avenue is important to this town. You should have a substation on Flagler Avenue, and then when the music gets loud at 10 o'clock at night, they're there. Not out in Venetian Bay taking care of a sick dog or something. All right? A substation is what I recommend.
Okay, thank you.
Hi,
Hello.
my name's Sandy Seacamp. I live at 370 Flagler Avenue, right across the street from the old gas station, so I've seen it all. And, you know, I've lived in coastal communities my entire life, very busy coastal communities where people come to party and have a good time. We're a drinking town with a shark problem, you know, so everybody knows that. But I'm telling you, I've seen it in the 7 years that I've lived here get more and more intense with the people that are here visiting us. I couldn't agree with more with what everybody else is saying. And I really like the idea of having a substation on Beachside for special events and getting that reputation that we're not going to put up with this kind of stuff. Because my fear is that some of these kids are going to get out of control. I already saw in the police blog that there was a shooting on South Atlantic, which horrified me. I know our police are fantastic. I've always admired the way that they are reserved. They kind of stay back. They observe the situation. They let people know they're there. And most of the time, that does the trick. So I also agree that if we could have some kind of bigger police presence down there during times when we know things are going to happen, like this weekend, for example, you know, that's a prime time. And, you know, we had the bikers here for Bike Week. We didn't have a lot of problems then. But now these kids are here, and it's unfortunate. They come into the courtyard at the Colony. We have a courtyard with shops in there. The language that they use, and I mean, listen, I'm not somebody, I moved across the street from Traders. So I'm not the person that says, I bought a house next to the airport and those planes are flying overhead all the time. I'm there because I enjoy it. But, you know, sometimes enough is enough, and I'm afraid that there's going to be something that really bad happens, and then we're going to be having a big fat black eye in New Smyrna Beach, and we don't want that. We want to keep it the family-friendly town that I'm proud to tell my friends and family that I live in. And I also agree. Thank you for putting this meeting together so promptly and addressing this situation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. You're fine. He's part of the press.
Hi, I'll be very brief, and thank you again. I actually called this afternoon because I didn't know if I'd be able to make it, and I think most of you, if not all of you, know my son Jordan. Mm-hmm. Jordan is 24. He's got cerebral palsy, and he's been a resident here for 4 years. He was out at the intersection at the old gas station with friends that live here, that work here, on Sunday, before I saw all the videos that happened during the week. And kid hopped up right out of the top of his sunroof and shot Jordan, obviously targeting him, and it's visible that he, you know, has cerebral palsy. And I think that when our residents are being disrespected in that way where they can be harmed, I mean, thankfully he didn't fall over, hit his head, but that could have been an older person that has a balance issue, that could have been the owner of the gas station, you know. It really affects our community, not just when they're disrespecting property, standing on people's cars, but when they're physically targeting, young people and possibly older people in our community that live here year-round, it's a concern. And I've seen it in other communities. We came from, Ocean City, Maryland has the same issue. I don't know what they did about it, but I value us being a small enough community that we can have these types of meetings to participate in and come up with some answers. So,
All right.
but thank you.
Thank you. Jordan, we love you, man. Sorry that happened. That's why we're here. We're gonna try to do something. Any others? Public participation. Yes, ma'am. Come ahead. Right here.
Melinda Wilt, 2100 North Peninsula Avenue, resident and homeowner for 20 years. Thank you for having this meeting. I'm here more for personal concern, and I'm wondering if other people like myself feel less safe now than they did a year ago. I've been asking my neighbors that question. Secondary to underage drinking and driving, the implications for that is of concern. Are there any plans to have any DUI traffic sting related to traffic off the bridges or Saxon Boulevard? Any discussion on that? Agree with the curfews, like that. And with the increase in homeless individuals, narcotic overdoses, increased thefts, it's decreased the security of citizenry while they're on their own property. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Come ahead.
Terry Stevens. I'm a new resident of New Smyrna. I moved here in May, and my wife and I bought the Seahorse Inn on Flagler Avenue.
Pull that mic up if you would. You're a tall guy. Pull that mic up so they can hear you.
All right.
There you go.
And first of all, I want to thank you for being so responsive. Secondly, I want to thank the police department. I think they've done everything they could with what they had when it happened. And I don't see this as being an easy fix. You don't see it as being an easy fix, but I would like to see a curfew, because apparently parents don't do curfews anymore. So sometimes, someone else has to step in for them. But I would like to see some kind of a long-term solution. When I was growing up, which was a long time ago, I'll admit, we didn't have high school spring break, or if we did, I didn't know it. And I would like to see us, and Lord knows the children are behind in their school. And I know this isn't something you address, but maybe it's a place to start, that we need to work with the school systems to keep the kids in school, and they don't really need a break from what their workload is right now. Most of the children and they are children, that I've interacted with during the swarm on Monday night were respectful to me when I told them, this is private property, you can't come on here. They moved. And I don't blame it on the children. They're here, they have nothing else to do. We don't have anything else for them to do. I mean, Daytona Beach, 15 miles up, has a mall on the beach and has bungee jumping and all that sort of thing. So I think we have to make a decision. Do we want to try to work with them, or do we want to try to keep them out? And I don't have an answer, but I think I do like the idea of the substation, and I would very much support a curfew. The earlier the better. I was up till 12:30 protecting my parking lot the last 2 nights. Our motel, since we've taken it over, we've tried to cater to happy tourists and happy vacationers, and it's very important to us that they have a good experience, and they can't have a good experience if they can't go to sleep at night. So anything you can do, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And if you appoint a committee to try to come up with things, I'd be happy to.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Others? Deb, come ahead. No, you're going to have to pull that mic back down. There you go.
Deborah Dugas, 200 North Pine Street. I'm literally about to throw up. I think I'm so nauseous from listening to people. I've shared with you, I'm sure you've read much of the social media. None of that affected me personally, so I'm not going to speak to it, except that it just makes me sick to my stomach to hear these people, the danger that we're in. And again, I will speak to the neighborhood because it does affect us. We didn't have big issues like that, but we have smaller issues, the golf carts, the speeding, the cursing, the whole 9 yards. But I'm just sick. I am literally sick to my stomach to have to listen to this about my city. I don't have an answer. I'm sorry that you have to come up with one. That's sad. It's our society, of course, but it's our community and our city, and you have to help us. Those of us who live here, those of us who visit here, but we all need your help. Please. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Any others? All right. Seeing none. Yes, come ahead.
Hi, my name is Alice Muskie. I'm owner of Treats on the Beach on Flagler Avenue. I'm right in the heart of everything that's been going on. I've been here nearly 20 years, and I've seen a lot of spring breaks. This one is a little out of hand, and I consider the fact that the school boards in Seminole, Orange, Brevard, and Volusia, all, and UCF, and Daytona Beach, all had spring break on the same week. It is always staggered throughout weeks. And sure, we get crowds on some of the overlap weekends and stuff, but this is crazy. And I don't think that all of these kids were even high school kids. There were a lot of middle schoolers out there. And I didn't see that many college kids, but I think if they can coordinate between all of these school districts, they're all going to give spring break. But we have a lot of weeks in March and April for them to share the spring breaks and not have it all in one time. Because that's a lot of kids to dump on any area when you think about it. Because we get Orlando, Seminole, Orange, we get all of the county kids that come here. So I think that's something to look at. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any others? Seeing none. All right, we're going to close public participation. We may come back. I may invite actually some business owners up as we talk about specific things, but for now we're going to close public participation. And I want to point out, first of all, you see on the screen here, we don't normally do this actually in our meetings, but we have Carrie and Khaled, that's our city manager and our city attorney respectively. They both, ironically, are on spring break vacation themselves somewhere, hopefully not having to have an ordinance written about them. So we really appreciate, they've basically dedicated much of last night and then basically all of today to addressing this, talking to the community, talking with the commission, and I know I talked to them numerous times, traded tons of emails. So really, really appreciate their going above and beyond for the city and their attendance today. We'll hear more from them later. I think we want to start off maybe with hearing from Police Chief and his team. They're going to share what they have done so far, what they've seen, kind of the boots on the ground, what they've seen. And then also talk with us about what the plan is for the next couple of days. And then after that, we'll pause and we'll come to the commission. We'll kind of start some dialogue. So, Chief.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. So we were prepared for spring break as we knew it. The last speaker came up and said that this is the first time that they've had spring break across all of Central Florida at the same time, and she's absolutely right. So we did not anticipate what we've been experiencing for the last couple of nights. That said, I think it was Ray that said accurately earlier, we don't have enough police officers to be on every corner. So if you've been reading social media, there's been some posts out there that the police are invisible, they're non-existent. That's absolutely not true. We may not be right there where folks need us to be at that moment, but we have ramped up our staffing. We have full staff in our regular shifts, and we've assigned extra personnel to the Flagler Avenue Business Corridor every night this week. To To that end, we had a meeting yesterday with all of our law enforcement partners in this area of Volusia County, to include the county, Edgewater, Port Orange, South Daytona, and the Beach Safety Division. We have a operational plan that we've put together, both with Beach Safety and our other partners for mutual aid, and we'll be staffing up beginning tomorrow, which is what we expect to be our biggest day with St. Patrick's Day. We have people in uniforms, and then we have people who are in plain clothes. I'm not going to divulge what our operational plans in terms of how we're going to address this issue are, because the kids are looking at social media and they're probably watching this as we speak right now. But I assure you that we're going to address this. We have been taking enforcement action so far and will continue to take enforcement action as we move forward. That enforcement action includes writing traffic citations, making physical arrests, and writing notice to appears and any other avenue that's available to us. So that's where we're going right now. I'm happy to answer any questions. I brought Lieutenant Kirk up here with me because he has some firsthand knowledge of what he's seen out there. But again, I assure you that every available New Smyrna Beach police officer is working, to include myself, the deputy chief, and the rest of the command staff. There's nobody that's sitting in an office anywhere that isn't on light duty, that isn't going to be working for the foreseeable future until we get this under control. I have assurances from our partners in the law enforcement community that they will send us mutual aid when it's necessary. So, Chris, if you'll enlighten them on a couple of things that you've seen.
Chief, real quick before he goes, if I can. This notion about adding officers, and that's a little bit broader than this meeting, but I just want to address that. We have been adding officers. You've requested different staffing levels. The commission's approved. The challenge isn't putting the budget in place for the officer. The problem is finding an officer, getting them through training while we don't lose anyone on the back end. This is a profession that is struggling for the general public's benefit. If any of you want to sign up to be an officer, call it, because we're trying to find good people to come into this profession. So I don't know if you want to speak to that just on broad terms briefly.
Yes, sir. We don't have an issue with the overtime. The issue is getting people to work. Some of our folks have been working multiple days straight, upwards of 8, 9, 10 days during special events. We just finished Bike Week. My traffic unit has been working basically nonstop since that started. So at some point we have to afford them a day off because otherwise then they get exhausted to the point that they may make bad decisions. So we make them take a day off. That said, we staff up for special events all the time. This is nothing new. Again, I don't have enough people in our department and the sheriff's office and 2 or 3 other agencies in this area to put a police officer on every corner. It's just impossible. As Ray said, I mean, there's 400, sometimes 500 kids out there. 100 officers wouldn't be able to handle these kids if they decide they want to do something that's nefarious. We address the antagonizers in the group. We'll take the most egregious offenders out of there and set the example for the other kids and say, this is what's going to happen if you act up. But there's not enough jail space. There's not enough DYS space. There's not enough space at Beach House to house these kids. So we have to be smart about this. So one of the tools that we've asked you for is what we're here for this evening, and I appreciate you calling the emergency meeting. This will be one more tool in the toolkit that we can use to address those egregious offenders.
Okay, thank you. Lieutenant.
Hi. So briefly overviewing what I saw when we went out there, I was with the mayor for many parts of last night. Obviously, we saw the social media posts with the influx of people. Having already had it staffed, we had officers there, but due to the overwhelming number of kids in the street, I came in, walked the avenues, and like everybody has explained so far tonight, it's giant groups of kids congregating in and around the street. They generally move along when told to as we go through, but as the chief said, it's from one corner to another corner to another corner, starting as soon as sunset. So as we went through, we worked diligently meeting with business owners to renew trespass warning authorizations so that we could take authority to act in the business owner's absence, and started trying to act on the people that are causing the biggest problems. During that time, we'd see cars driving down the street with people hanging out of the back of them. I specifically addressed one pickup as it came up to the intersection of Atlantic and Flagler. Told the people sitting on the tailgate to either get out of the truck or get all the way in the truck. They got out of the truck. I then realized the driver and passenger weren't wearing seatbelts, so I pulled them over, and the people who got out of the truck walked back up and said, "I apologize, that's my 17-year-old daughter and her friend. They're driving us up to Peanuts. So sorry that we instigated that." So it's not just the kids. Obviously, the parents are contributing to that too. I think anything else is probably non-unique that I could explain, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. All right. Questions for the officer?
Yeah, just real quick. I'm under the interpretation that the majority of these problems are from underage youth, roughly high school, junior high school kids. Not totally, but is that the vast majority of these are unsupervised minors?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify, because we talk a lot about different spring breaks, college, high school, all that. So
We have instances, both last year and this year, where parents have come over and rented either short-term rental houses or hotel rooms, piled up a whole bunch of kids in there, and then have walked away from the thing. Last year particularly, it wasn't in the city, but it was on South Beach in the county area. We had a large party down there that the county requested mutual aid from us. We went down there. There was a large house party down there. A girl had gotten run over by a truck, and her leg was broken. That was really the beginning of what we're starting to see here, and we're seeing the same thing this year.
So, Mayor, I don't want to hijack the meeting. I'm going to stop any questions now, and I want to readdress that before the end of the meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. So with that, I think we'll start off with discussion. I want to kind of set the stage for, obviously why we're here. We heard these stories. So last night I went down, spent some time walking the street, talking to our officers, observing, talking to everyone I could basically to talk to me. I talked to every adult I could find, which was kind of few and far between. I'll come back to that in a minute. Talked to a lot of the youth. They were that age group. I didn't see hardly anyone in that middle. Like there was the college age bracket, up to my age. Like I didn't see many of those, frankly. So talked to many of the business owners, some of whom are here tonight. The owners of restaurants, of the bars, etc. So got a lot of insight into what is happening. We had a similar thing, kind of the beginning stages of this last year, but nothing even to this scale. And frankly, we didn't know last year whether that was a one-time thing, and we thought we'd handled that last year, but clearly this year it's bigger than ever, and so that's kind of led to where we are today is we got to put a lot of options on the table. Once again, we're turning to law enforcement primarily to solve a breakdown of somewhere else in society. In this case, it's parenting, in my opinion. So we have this parenting breakdown, and now we're asking law enforcement to solve it. So, trying to give them as many tools in the tool belt as possible, recognizing that no thing we can do here tonight is going to completely solve that societal problem and breakdown. That this is going to make it go away just because we take some measure today. But certainly giving them all the available tools they can have and that they've asked for is important. I want to point out, too, I've talked to the hotels. I've talked to every hotel manager I talked to today. They're behind us 100%. One of the things we deal with is this balance of, we don't want to hurt business in any way, and we don't want to cause any other issues. They don't, this isn't good for them. I've talked to numerous other business owners. I helped Treats on the Beach close down last night. Walked her to her car in the rain. This isn't great for their business either. I mean, that was about the only business I could see that they were spending any money in. And she's okay with us taking measures to try to curtail this. So the hotels they're committed to trying to be partners in this. They're often our frontline defense on seeing some of these things first. They're cracking down. They're trying every policy and procedure they can to make sure there's an adult in these rooms and we're not having these rooms that are rented. I heard a story from a manager. He said, my office is right outside. I can see the check-in basically. He said, I watched as a whole group of kids got checked in, and then the parent left and got in the car and drove off. He said, and the kids are heading up to the room. He said, I went out, got the number, called the parent, said, where are you going? They're like, we're headed back to Orlando. Well, you left your kids. Am I supposed to babysit your kids for the next week? So that's the culture we're dealing with. And again, we at this point, we have to have kind of all hands on deck. The hotels are, they're going to do some measures. They're going to put some measures in place to adopt a very low tolerance for any kind of issues that happen in the hotels. And then, if we give our police some tools, hopefully we can, my goal is I want us to be an unhospitable community for certain behaviors. I talked to a lot of families last night. They said, look, we've been coming here for years, stand there, mom and dad and a family, and hey, we've been coming here for years. What's happening? We've never seen this before, and we're concerned. One family I talked to, they said, my friends that came, they've already left. They packed up and left because they had a mirror knocked off their car by some kids. They said they left. We're a little nervous. We don't know if we want to come back if it's going to be like this. So we want to make sure, for me at least, that's the kind of family that we're attracting and making sure that it's a safe place for them. And this other behavior is just not going to be tolerated because that's not the reputation that we want in New Smyrna Beach. That's not what we're about. So I'll say more, but that just kind of sets the stage of why I felt this was important enough, not just to plan for next year, but we've got a little bit of a perfect storm brewing with St. Patrick's Day, the weekend coming. The weather's supposed to turn. Last year we got saved a little bit by the weather, if you recall. The same kind of weather pattern blew through, the temperature dropped, and it was rainy. This year, the weekend's looking good, and that's going to be a problem. So that's why we're here. So with that, I'll open it up to the commission for comments, questions in general. Ultimately, we do have a proposed ordinance of a curfew, so we'll eventually get to the discussion on that particular item, but I'll open it up for other comments or questions for the officers. Chief, stay around. We're gonna.
I tried to get back there, but
I know. I saw you ducking out. You're going to be front and center on this for a little bit, I feel. So, however you want to do it. We'll just come down the line. We'll start down there. Go ahead.
Chief, I just had a quick question. In this provision, we're having a holding location. I don't necessarily need to know where that is, but I don't want to have a holding location in Daytona Beach and officers driving back and forth. Do you have someplace locally in mind?
So we have a holding cell at the police department that we can use. The Department of Juvenile Justice restricts us on how long we can hold these kids. It's 6 hours. And if we go beyond that time, then there's a whole slew of reports and things that we have to file to justify that. The problem is that we've run across kids that are from Ohio that are here, and their parents are up in Ohio. Kids from Orange County that are over here. I'm using those two places. There's people from all over. But it becomes very difficult to get a hold of a parent or guardian and have them in the middle of the night drive over here and collect these youngsters. So officers end up having to sit with them, babysit them in our holding cell. Sometimes there's options available depending on what the charge is. If it's a violent felony, typically the Department of Youth Services, DJJ, will take secure detention. And then sometimes we have the availability to go to Beach House in Daytona for a particular issue with a juvenile. But for the most part, we end up babysitting them. And so when we do that, then it takes a police officer off the street.
Right.
So right away, I'm down a resource, sometimes two, depending on how many kids that we have in the holding cell. So it's not as easy as just locking them in a cell and walking away from them.
Thank you.
And it really doesn't make any difference if it's back at the police department or it's someplace over on the Flagler Avenue area. The location doesn't make any difference for us. It still requires man hours to sit with them.
Okay. Vice Mayor.
Thank you for that question. That was where I was getting. What resources do we have, or what are our limitations to dealing with these youths? I think one thing that is clear is the parents are the problem. And if the parents want to let their kids become problems for us, I want to make it a problem for the parents. I want to inconvenience them. I want to have them to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and drive to New Smyrna Beach to get their kid. I want to figure out a way to get some pain on the parents, because it's not going to stop with these irresponsible parents letting their kids do whatever they want over here in New Smyrna if they're not inconvenienced, if it's not a problem for them. So, yeah, I think the key here is making sure we can push back and make the pain on the kid who's acting like a knucklehead and the parent who's allowing it and enabling it. This is bad business. Let's be clear. I don't think anybody wants any of this in terms of business. There's no way this is good business for anybody. A bunch of kids running around, causing problems, vandalizing things. It's easy for outsiders to say, well, it's not really a big deal. What are they really doing? Kids being kids. It's not their property. It's not their problem. And I'm perfectly interested in letting it become their problem if they want to minimize the significance of the problems they're creating in the community. So I would really love to find a way, and I know you don't have the staff right now to be able to do that. And as I've told you many times, my goal is to get you staffed. And we're not a town of 25,000 people. We're a town that doubles in population, and I think that this will be a good starter for the budget discussions coming up. So I like where we're going. I want to get into the curfew. My concern about the curfew is, how do we balance giving you a tool that is going to allow you to get things done? On the other hand, if we have a 12 a.m. curfew on a Friday or Saturday night, does this allow enough time for them to build up their numbers? And then we say 12 o'clock, and there's no way that I can have the expectation that you're going to solve this problem when 400 kids, 500 kids have gathered in a specific area, and then all of a sudden we say, okay, time's up, go home. We all know how that's gonna end. And so it's an unrealistic expectation that we can put on you if we're not careful with that. So that's one of the issues getting into this ordinance, that I don't want to build it up to midnight and then, we've let it build to a problem. So I see that as something we can get into a little bit on this ordinance. Do you have any suggestions for that?
So I'm not going to steal the city attorney's thunder. There's provisions in this proposed ordinance that address the parents, and I'll let her speak to that. We had long discussions about this and how this ordinance was crafted, and Carrie did a really, really good job on this. It mirrors the state law and the state requirements, and she's a smart attorney, so I completely trust her with what she's got here. I think that's what is proposed is appropriate, but I agree with you. It needs to be painful for the parents. We also have, we're going to use every legal tool in our toolbox to address what the problems are, particularly if juveniles are acting up the way that Lieutenant Kirk just described in a vehicle. We will tow that vehicle. They'll have to pay for it to come out of the impound. There are things that in the enforcement of laws that we can do that will make things uncomfortable for the parents.
Yeah, and I think that, there's probably some parents out there that don't know what their kids are doing. And I can tell you, if I get called at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning about my kid getting in trouble and I got to go drive to New Smyrna Beach and I live in Orlando, I can assure you that there's going to be a lot of problems between me and my kids. So, hopefully with this going forward, we're going to be able to at least let parents at the very least know what their kids are doing, and inconveniencing them at least one time, and maybe they'll get a little better control of their kids. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that.
I'm going to come to Commissioner Sachs next. I want to clarify, though, this ordinance is not necessarily perfect. There's some suggestions that the city attorney would have, other ways we might refine this given more time. This was crafted, again, as Chief said, mainly off of, what we felt was highly defensible and in line with state statutes, and would at least give us something in this kind of present distress. We would then come back and revisit this in normal protocols where we can get more public input, because this is obviously an emergency meeting. Normally this would require 2 readings. So this is not kind of final form or long-standing. This is for present distress, and then we'll come back to this, and we might can get a little bit, put a finer point on some of these things. So, Commissioner Sachs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, I'm going to put you on the spot, like sometimes we're put on the spot. This document, you reviewed almost all of it, or all of it, correct?
Yes, sir.
Are there elements that you like and dislike about it?
So I asked for one minor adjustment to it, and the city attorney has made that adjustment to it. But again, I think that the the proposed ordinance is very strong in terms of it mirrors state law, so we're not getting outside of what the state is going to support. So I think, as the mayor said, that as a temporary measure, this is about as good as it can get.
Thank you. Does law enforcement was or was not aware, I don't mean to put you on the spot like a court, but was law enforcement aware that this was an organized event? That it was promulgated on social media somewhere that for this week there was going to be concerts, frivolity, parties, whatever on Flagler?
So we monitor social media, and we've seen some of the posts, particularly as it relates to the Orby airsoft type guns and what their plans were with those. We've looked at some of the posts on there and have tried to work with business owners. I've met with some, the deputy chief and Lieutenant Kirk met with some, and we've talked about what their plans were during this week and moving forward. And some of that information that's on social media is not accurate, and so we verified that. And then I can assure you that if there's any parties or any large gatherings that are being advertised on there, well, we should be aware of most all of them.
Yes, and gatherings like that normally aren't lawful without a permit, correct?
I think that some of those events that they talked about there are, yes, unlawful. They would be in violation of our city codes. You know, there are tools that we have that would be able to disperse those types of events. What you're seeing, though, and by and large on Flagler, are spontaneous grouping of kids. They, as Lieutenant Kirk said, they go from one corner, we run them off, they go to another corner, and we just kind of, it's like herding cats. You know, we address them. For the most part, I would say that most of the kids are cooperative. I think that you have more than a handful that are not, and we're taking steps to address them.
My big concern is the curfew. There are probably many young people out there that are law-abiding, just want to go out and have a good time with their friends. So for me, the curfew makes me a little uncomfortable. And my only criticism of law enforcement, because unfortunately we as commissioners can't go out, and you can't do that. Basically, it falls upon you to expertly enforce those laws. So my only recommendation is for law enforcement to do what they do best. And the only criticism I have of this whole debacle we have now, because it goes on every year in little spots, the Islander event when somebody shot up in the air, that could go on anywhere, everywhere, anytime. So to isolate Flagler or Canal, I don't know, doesn't make sense. If you're going to curfew the whole city. But
Well, there's a provision in this proposed ordinance that addresses that. It's concentrated east of Riverside Drive, but there's also another provision in there that allows for gatherings of 30 more individuals anywhere in the city. So let's just say, for example, that some of the kids over on the beach side find the temperature too hot for them with us, and they decide to run over to Wawa or something of that nature there, and then they gather in that parking lot. We already have trespass warning authority for that location, but if there were more than 30 kids there, then we would go over there and address that through this ordinance as well.
And you had prepared with our mutual aid agreement departments that we would have an ongoing agreement for every season. Am I correct, or hopefully correct, that we plan for this and plan for it for next year and the following year?
So coming from the fire services, as you did, you're much more used to first due, second due, third due units type like that. We're a little bit more non-structured in law enforcement. We usually just pick up the phone and call and say, hey, we need some help, and then everybody comes running. In anticipation of that, we had our meeting yesterday and saying, hey, we anticipate that we're going to need help, so we're reaching out now in advance. So can you send us some people in advance? And then if we call you, this is why we're calling you. This is where we're going to be. Here's our operational plan so that you know what radio channel we're going to be on. And all those discussions have already happened.
Yes. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Thank you. The shooting event that's referenced a few times, just in case anyone's clear, that was not related to youth. My understanding was that we've made some arrests. That was a biker gang.
That was a bike week related to that.
Appreciate that.
That is so disconnected, and you're right, that could happen anywhere across the city. The city attorney's feedback on restricting this to a certain, because my first thought was the same, but give me the whole city. Again, we go back to enforceability, defendability in courts and things like that. City attorney felt more comfortable if it were more limited, and that's when Chief asked for and got the addition of that 30 people anywhere. But when we talk about, and I encourage you all, go down and walk amongst these folks and see what really happens, because I can tell you this notion of these organized events. What happened last night that I saw was it wasn't an organized event. There's kids, they're on Snapchats, they're tagging their locations. That when they move from here, they just all fall down there, and you'll hear them as they run by. It's oh, there everybody's going here. I heard they're all going there. It's not organized in the way you or I would organize an event. It's not even first of all, none of these kids are on Facebook. They're on all the new apps, TikTok, etc. So there's no event structure that they're organized. I'm not saying there may not have been one to begin with, but last night there was no organized events. It was just, as Chief said, herding cats, throughout Flagler Avenue. If you think about the city in those terms, where else can youth kind of congregate in a public property setting, not so much private property, because they would be trespassed on private property. Once you get out of Flagler Canal area, they're not going to come hang out. There's not too many other places. They're going to walk down the side of 44. Like that's too spread out. It's too, they're not seeing their friends. It doesn't create that same kind of culture vibe that they have right there on Flagler. So that's why I think the focus is on Flagler. And again, the last thing I'll say, and I'm coming to you, Mike, is talk to Chief about this. Some of the stuff is, I want to address the issue today, but I want to really address, next year. So my goal is, if we make it uncomfortable, as they said, if it gets a little hot, all of a sudden these juniors, I talk to a lot of juniors in high school and even younger, these juniors in high school, if they don't have a good time, and if they're constantly kind of being run around town, and even if they don't leave with a ticket, even if mom and daddy don't get called, if it just wasn't fun, because we made it not fun for them, then maybe they don't come here next year when they're a senior in high school. Maybe they pick some other town. So that's part of this objective, is to solve the immediate crisis, but also set this tone of, if you want to have fun, Flagler Avenue is not the place to do it as a unaccompanied minor. So, Commissioner Clody.
I'm kind of disturbed that this whole thing had to occur. First of all, I appreciate the mayor calling this special meeting. I wish we didn't have to do it. What we have before us is a 9-page ordinance. There's absolutely no way in heck I can read this and make any kind of a qualified decision as to what's right and wrong in it. There's only one line in here that allows me to support this. This is going to stay in effect for 60 days. We're not solving anything in the long run. Last year, next year, this year, these problems are going to occur. I shouldn't say this, but the first time I came to New Smyrna was for spring break. And we raised holy hell here in Daytona. And that was before there was cell phones. So these events are going to happen in one form or the other unless we take a cohesive look. And when this thing runs out, I will support it. When this thing runs out, I want to see something on the table that's more of a permanent answer. As Commissioner of Zone 1, which was the North Beach area and included Flagler Avenue, I get emails daily about debris around, about traffic, speeding, not just the youth. That's only one small part of it. There's college-age people. There's our day trippers who park in all the residential areas, leave debris all over the place. I just got an email of all of the beer packaging laying behind the Methodist church. We are not going to be able to legislate the fact that people are going to come and disabuse our residents. They're the ones that I care about. I care about the businesses, that they remain, they're our residents for the most part. But we simply weren't prepared for this, and we should have been. It's not just the police who are at fault. We're at fault because we should have addressed it, because it happened last year, and it's probably happened for decades in one form or the other. Youth are more mobile now than they used to be. We got to know that. We have increased our manpower in the police. Yes, we might have to cut back enforcement elsewhere, but as the chief said, maybe we could put a cop in every corner when we come to a nice weekend in the spring, the beginning of spring break. Whenever there's something like St. Patrick's Day, I'm sure the chief has a plan for that. But these spontaneous things are going to happen, and we have to have a plan in place. And I'm not telling you how to do your business. I haven't even asked what your plans are. But we got to be a little more prepared. And if this commission needs to give you anything so you can enforce that, I'm all for it. We have been negligent in not planning far enough in advance. I've been Zone 1 Commissioner for 3.5 years now, only for another week because they're changing the zones. But I can tell you, every corner in the North Beach area where there's a parking problem, a drainage problem, a neighbor problem, a golf cart problem, a trash problem, they're all over the place. They're not caused by our residents, they're caused by visitors. And we have to, as the mayor said, we got to put something on the books so we can be protected. It's nice to hold the parents accountable for it, because they're responsible for it, but that's not going to solve the problem. Might give us a little money, but it's not going to solve the problem. We really have to, we got to get into this. We have special events there. This wasn't a special event, it was spontaneous. During special events, sometimes we have one over here, one over there, all in the same day. We got traffic driving through all the neighborhoods. We're not doing our job on all those fronts. And I hold the commission accountable, ultimately, for not being prepared, because we weren't prepared. I've said enough.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, may I suggest we come back around? I think there may be further comments.
Sure. Yeah, I'll open it back up. Chief, I did have one thing. Someone mentioned, I forget who it was over here, about a DUI checkpoint. I've never really, that I recall, I don't see that, I haven't seen that around, but I'm wondering, this underage drinking and this notion of checkpointing, is that something that is that a strategy that we could employ that you think would be a good thing, a bad thing? Does it sap resources? Does it, again, does that send that message? What message does it send of, hey, we're gonna, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Anything?
So we make DUI arrests on a regular basis.
Yeah.
We address that through proactive patrol and looking for the signs of impaired drivers. I think that by and large, my personal opinion is that static checkpoints are largely ineffective. When you look at some of the other agencies around here that do that, they end up with just one or two. But in my mind, they've inconvenienced sometimes hundreds of regular drivers by stopping them for no good reason and checking them. Again, that's my own personal philosophy on this. I like my force to be mobile, and it's a static checkpoints are a resource drain for the return on that investment.
Okay. All right. Let's real quick open it up for Carrie and Khalid. Carrie, anything, I'll come to you first, anything on the ordinance specifically, anything you've heard that you wanted to address or anything that we need to know? One question I did have for you is, since we're passing this basically without two readings, I think it requires a supermajority if I'm correct, but remind me on that.
Correct. This is an emergency ordinance, so it will require a supermajority. The reason we went with 60 days is this is not intended to be a permanent measure. It's something to help us right now in this situation. The thought process is we could probably gather good statistics from this to help us moving forward in whatever we decide to adopt. Couple things I wanted to point out is on lines 151 and 169 to help Chief with his with the issue of having to babysit people. He's suggesting lowering the age to 18. So if a parent's up in Ohio, they can authorize someone down in Florida, 18 years or older, to take their kid and get them out of town. The other thing, in terms of restricting it to east of Riverside Drive, with the exception of, if they end up going further out west and 30 or more people, we have that ability. The bigger it gets, the more temporary I would want it to be. So right now we're at 60 days. Some of the comments I've heard, we could lower it down to 30 days and maybe go to 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. on Friday or Saturday. But the goal was to stay consistent with state statute, especially in light of the emergency measure and how quickly we were moving this forward. The ordinance does provide for parents have a legal duty to make sure their kids are not violating this ordinance. They get a written warning the first time. If they knowingly violate again, it's a $50 fine. After that, it's a $100 fine. This also applies to business owners. Same fines, warning, first time around $50, the next time around $100 after that. The business does have a defense if they've notified the youth that they have to leave and the youth refuses to leave. That is a defense to any sort of claim against them. And just keep in mind, these ordinances have been challenged in the past as being unconstitutional. And this one was drafted based on the parameters set forth in State versus JP, which the Supreme Court considered in 2004. They're subject to strict scrutiny, which means they have to be narrowly tailored to serve the compelling governmental interest. So when you see those exceptions, those exceptions are intended to deal with those legal issues that arise with these. And that's all I have for now.
So one thing I think I heard you say was if we wanted to get maybe a little more strict on the times and or maybe the fines, although I don't think you said that, but if we wanted to even raise the fines a bit, both of which I think I would be in favor of, you would suggest we lower the duration down. We make this maybe 30 days, and then we just, at that point, we address it via normal course of business. Is that what I heard you say?
Yes. So my thought was, if we were going to do something, it would be more, a 7-day measure or 14-day measure, something to that effect. The further you go away from what the state statute sets forth, the smaller the time frame should be.
Okay.
I know that there is some concern with upcoming college spring breaks and Canadian spring breaks. So that was the point of doing 60 days, was to cover all of those events. So that's just something to consider as well.
Okay.
I have a question for her.
Question for the attorney from Commissioner Colodi. I missed it. Huh? I missed it. I didn't see what.
I missed it too.
All right, we don't know what you're laughing at, but. All right.
For Carrie, question for Carrie. If we reduce it to 30 days, could that be extended at that point?
She may not have heard you. Repeat that question again. Carrie, Commissioner Colodi's got a question for you.
Carrie, if we limit it to 30 days, can we extend it at that point, if necessary?
If you're on mute, Carrie. The question was, if we extend it to, if we limit it to 30 days, at the end of 30 days, we could extend that.
We could. I wouldn't want it to extend any longer than necessary so that we can then look at our statistics and see where we want to go from there and make it a learning experience this time around.
Yeah, I mean, eventually I think she wants us, the main thing is we want to go through that very formal first, second reading process as soon as possible with anything that's permanent, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, another
Yeah,
question.
if we wanted a permanent measure, we would come back through with a different ordinance with data submitted as well regarding the increase in crime and those types of statistics.
Okay, Carrie, hang on. We got one more from Commissioner Sachs.
Carrie, have you considered other cities' ordinances per the curfew? Cities like Panama City, Fort Lauderdale, Myrtle Beach, and others that are meccas for spring break?
The one that you have before you is a combination of looking at state statute, looking at what Daytona Beach has, looking at what West Palm Beach has, and just, you know, there's also the city of Tampa where I requested information. They have repealed theirs, so not everybody has them in place. So what you have before you is a blend of the different sources I reviewed.
Fair enough. Good job. Do you think the curfew can be omitted and still have good legislation in place that would give people guidelines to be in order?
Well, this ordinance before you is really all about the curfew.
Yeah.
So if there's additional measures we want to consider, that would be a different action. This was just trying to give the police one more tool for them to use. We recognize it's not going to fix the situation, but it may help at least, you know, the middle of the road people who don't want to get in trouble with law enforcement. This is probably the type of measure that would be effective in, you know, getting them to behave or leave the city or be supervised.
Thank you, Carrie. And Mayor, I have one more question for the chief, and I'll be through.
All right, any other questions for Carrie while we have her? Commissioner McGurk, Vice Mayor, sir.
Carrie, you say limited if we make it bigger. Is there, I don't want to overcomplicate. If a motion is made for 60 days with a few of these minor changes, do you get a lot of heartburn? Can we just move it forward with 60 days and we deal with that?
If you move it forward with 60 days, I'm comfortable with the manner it's drafted. If you want to start tinkering around, I would recommend moving it up to, you know, start considering incremental, like the tighter it is, 7 days, 14 days. The goal was just to put something in front of you to kind of get us through these spring breaks.
Okay, so if I make a motion and you get heartburn, chime in real quick. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Anything for her? Okay, so Carrie, I think that's all the questions for you for now. Commissioner Sachs, if you're okay, let me go to Khalid, and then we'll get the chief back up here. So, Khalid, anything from your perspective to share? And then I've got one thing I want to bounce off of you as well. All right, he went off mute. We're not hearing you, Khalid.
Can you hear me?
Now we can, yes, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, Khalid, we could hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
We just can't see you. We can
Just
hear
a couple
you.
of comments, Mayor, and I appreciate that. I just want to say that I have really full confidence in our police department. I think they're doing the best they can. But I think they're outnumbered as the police chief. I think the number we have in terms of the spring breakers, even if we have 200 police officers, that would not be sufficient. I also want to say that I fully support the curfew, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this by itself would not solve the problem entirely. I'm hopeful that with the extra help that if we get from other agencies, I think that would be a big help for us. I also, on the long term, I want to reach out to the school boards in Orlando and Volusia County to see if we could stagger their spring breaks at a different time. I think that would be a big help. And also, I agree with Commissioner Colodi. We will come up with an overall plan for this and for years to come, because I don't want this to ruin our city, neighborhoods, and businesses. So we will do everything possible to take care of this issue. So this is unfortunate, but we will handle it. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions or comments for the city manager? All right. Thank you, Khalid. Okay, Chief, I think we had a few more things for you, or at least one other question. I've actually got a few more as well, I forgot. Commissioner Sacks.
Thanks, Chief. Chief, do you think it's an additional burden to have to monitor ages and the curfew to the staff over a 24-hour period?
I don't quite understand what you're asking.
Is it additional work for you to monitor the fact that there will be children out past the curfew time?
Is it a burden? I mean, I don't know that it's any more of a burden than we're already out there working, doing what we're doing. I think this proposed ordinance gives us just another tool to use while we're out there. I don't know that it causes us any more work other than generating some statistical analysis at the end of this that'll help support whatever the commission decides to do in the future with the ordinance.
Because I'm just wondering if, the physicality of catching somebody and asking for their ID, and then what do you do if they're 15 years old and they're out past the curfew? Now you're tied up with that child basically for what amount of time? You have to contact the parents who, according to social media, are not here. They've rented the rooms for their kids. So I just wonder, are we grasping at straws trying to curfew all of the children?
So what we'll be doing is addressing behaviors. So if you have a juvenile who's walking from a hotel to a car and back and acting like a normal person, that we're not going to go and address that particular juvenile. What we're looking at is this crowd of kids that are gathering up and starting to behave inappropriately. That's when we'll be able to use this as a tool. Because as Ray said, we don't have enough officers to be out there with 300-400 kids and address this at that level. So what we'll be doing is we'll be looking and saying, oh, this one over here is not acting right. We need to go over there and address that. So it won't really be a blanket type issue, just from a logistical standpoint.
And if you'll allow me, I have to step in and say, I've always been pro-enforcement. So whether you're in a car or whether you're in the street with an open container, you're breaking the law. And I would expect our officers to enforce when they have to. Again, a curfew, I'll tell you bluntly, I'm not too comfortable with. I am for the full enforcement and arm of the law to pick out who's ever breaking it this evening or any evening during any time of year, because this is the kind of thing that kids learn from their parents and their peers. Adults are doing it as well, so everybody's doing it, and I'm still kind of hesitant about punishing the 15-year-old after 11 because he wants to go back to his room from another room that was, you know what I'm saying?
Our enforcement is firm but fair. There's no two situations that are exactly alike, and what you just described there, I don't see a situation where we're going to take an enforcement action against that 15-year-old.
Sure.
If that 15-year-old is just walking from one location to another to get back to his or her room, I can't imagine that our officers would be taking an enforcement action on that. There may be a telephone call, there may be some stern warning, but an enforcement action, unless there was some other behavior that caught our attention, I just don't see it.
Good. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Before we have any action on this, and I don't know exactly where we're at, but before we do this, we do need to just read this ordinance title into the record. So I'm going to have Carrie just do that real quick, and that'll get that codified.
Ordinance number 922, an emergency ordinance of the City of New Smyrna Beach enacting a temporary youth curfew for certain areas of the city with certain exceptions, providing for severability and providing an effective date.
Okay, thank you. All right, someone's beeping out there. I don't know. Someone's about to, about to blow.
Countdown.
Exactly. All right, with that, gentlemen, what's the commission's pleasure?
Well, I'm certainly willing to go through the motion. I think it was the chief who had an issue with 151 and 169 wanting to reduce that from 21 to 18. Am I accurate about that? Okay. The curfew being 11 p.m. I can go either way, reduce it down to 11 every night of the week, plus holidays, or what is the feeling on that before I make a motion?
I'm content with that. Everything that's written, I'm also agreeable if you make a motion to include the change on 151 and 169 to 18. I would second that motion.
Okay. I'm okay with moving to 11 p.m. every night. I agree with you. And again, I saw it firsthand. I think midnight, there's some momentum that gets built. So I would be okay with that. And I'm okay with if that's Chief's request at 18, I'm okay with that. I kind of like the 21, but I'll defer to the
Well,
team.
then I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to adopt the ordinance with the changes on line 151, 169, from 21 to 18 years of age, and a consistent curfew of 11 p.m.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any discussion on that motion? So just so we're clear, this does require, because we're passing it in one reading, it would require 4 out of 5 votes, a supermajority. 4 out of 5 votes, the motion will pass. Anything else, the motion would fail. We could reconsider if someone wanted to make another motion. So with that, I'll ask Travis to call the roll.
Commissioner Sachs?
No.
Commissioner Colodi?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McGurk?
Yes.
Mayor Owens?
Yes. All right,
Thank
with that, this ordinance is adopted. As was said earlier in the meeting, this didn't magically make the problem go away. All our magic wands are broken, all right? We're still gonna have to go out and do very real work from the men and women that wear blue. And frankly, a lot of other people in the community, our partners in the business community, guests and residents. And it'd be nice if some parents would step up as well. So, you know, as the days unfold, as you see things hit social media, and all of a sudden it's, you know, you hear a story about an officer that, you know, arrested an innocent 14-year-old. Remember, we're asking them to go help us in this case. And they're gonna do the best they can. And I encourage my commission, spend some time on the street, not at 4 in the afternoon when everything's nice and quiet after a rainstorm. Come down at midnight, check it out. Check out these roving bands of kids. And then let's see how let's see how we feel about this. So witness it firsthand, and then, you know, I saw it. I watched a huge group of kids, 75, 100 kids, maybe more. 2 of them got in a fight in the middle of it. Officers are right there on the scene. There's two officers, one on each kid, but there's 100 others around them. And as Chief and I were talking today, he said, listen, you take a situation like that, it gets tenuous real quick. You got a couple other kids that want to get involved, all of a sudden the officers are very quickly outmanned and out, you know. So we're asking them to do this. It may not go perfect. We may have issues. But this is, you know, we've got to get this under control. And I think we have to have our law enforcement back on this. If they're doing the best they can, they're following all the policies and procedures and training that we've provided them, then we have to have their back on this as they go out and try to help out the community in this regard. And we also have to have patience and acknowledge that this problem did kind of come up overnight. Again, spring breaks have existed forever, but they didn't always come to New Smyrna. Unaccompanied minors didn't always come to New Smyrna. So this is a relatively new phenomena. And it's not going to go away overnight, but I think we're taking the right steps to send a message loud and clear. And that message isn't that New Smyrna is closed and we don't want anyone here. The message is we want families here, we want couples, young adults, whoever it may be, responsible citizens that are coming here, being a part of our community, a part of our economy in a productive way, and that don't draw on our police resources and others. So a lot of other things were discussed by the city staff. I think there will be other discussion. I agree with Commissioner Colodi. I think we have to have a lot of other discussion in the peaceful times. Sun Tzu said, you plan in peace or bleed in war, right? So I think we have to work on that a lot. But anything else before this commission tonight? Any other business in the emergency meeting? All right. Thank you all to the public for being here. We hope you know we're working on this. We're there with you, and we're doing everything we can. If this doesn't work, we're going to keep at it. So thank you all. Meeting adjourned.